I would like to mention that the flowers today are placed here in memory of Mike Neville, one time a member of this church council, served with great dignity and eminence. He's remembered here and, of course, remembered today by his family. There are times when we become urgently concerned about our physical body, of course. There are times when we become urgently concerned about our possessions, of course. But so often we pay such little attention to our mind until we start to wonder, what's happening to my mind? Am I losing it? Am I having problems remembering things? I'd like to have a good memory. I thought I always did have a good memory, but is it starting to falter? So in this address, I'm going to speak about the memories. First of all, in general terms. Then I'm going to speak about how we're inclined to set it apart over there. And then I shall talk about how we load it with emotions, which begin to dominate our lives. And I hope then to go on to describe how we might get our memories to be different. And finally, I shall talk about the way your religion, your faith, can be a source of help to you in matters of memory. Of course, memory, first of all, is about remembering and forgetting. I remember one young woman with excellent training in psychology, excellent qualifications, applied for a job at my institute. She went through all the preliminary business of applying for the job, the interviews, and eventually she was in my office for the final interview. And so it proceeded. And eventually I asked her, "Have you read any of my writings?" And she paused and looked at me quizzically and said, "Who am I talking to?" Oh, and she didn't get the job. A year later, a new vacancy occurred, and so I suggested, why not ask that person to come back? Let's give her another try. And again, she found herself in my office. And again, I said, "Now, first of all, do you know who you're talking to?" And she remembered. She remembered the last time, and so she laughed very warmly, and she got the job. And what is more, she kept the job for nigh on 9 years. And when she left, just last year, she left with that legacy of a good memory. Good memories were left behind her. From time to time, over her time she was with us, we would recall that first interview with me, and we would laugh about it. So memory, you see, was at work, positively, expansively, in ways that enriched relationships and contributed greatly to the work environment. You would know that there are many, many instances where that is not so, where people leave their work environment and leave some very nasty memories behind. But memory is not like the book or the box on the end of the table. Memory is something very active, interactive. It's an energy that brings the past into the present. And in a way, isn't that an extraordinary thing? We take it for granted. But comes the time when it doesn't happen. Memory involves people and relationships. If we didn't have memory, where would we be with people and relationships? There comes a time when we mightn't have that. Memory affects the atmosphere and the environment. It takes on an emotional colouring. It gives that colouring. In my example, it gave the colouring ultimately of pleasure, of laughter, of enjoyment and vitality. So there's like standing in front of a mirror, trying on different hats. Good memories are like beautiful hats, brightly coloured hats that transform the way you look at yourself, the way you feel about yourself, and the way you feel towards other people and the world. A beautiful hat. Martin Heidegger, that famous German philosopher, invented a word for this. He called it Befindlichkeit. Befindlichkeit, a German word. It means how we feel about ourselves in the situation within which we are feeling. Of course, memory sometimes picks up a very different hat. Still within that situation, the hat of different feelings. The memory is a memory of anger, of sadness, of guilt, of restless hatred, of jealousy. And so the hat of this memory is likely to be a large, probably massively ugly mixture of green and black and orange, whatever. We know it is not a hat that makes us very attractive. Not at all. Sometimes we'd like to get it off, but it can be in place for so long that it's as if it's grown into our head, and certainly the brain has become part of that attachment. And so it goes on, and we become resentful and hostile year in, year out. In contrast, last year, Peter Isaacson, 92 years of age, been a friend of mine for 50 years, I suppose, he wrote this book called As I Remember Them, gathering together the eulogies he has given over the years at funerals for his friends and some of his relatives. Memories of people who, as he says on the cover, who shaped a life, enriched a life. And again, as you go through page after page, just a page or two of each eulogy, it concludes, we will always remember him. We are proud to have known him, and we are richer for having contact with him. For one or another, he wrote, we hold the memory of many, many happy days. Good memories. Memory is not always so gentle, you know that. Some years ago, when I was teaching the regular trauma therapy class, I ensured that everyone in the class would read this book, Margaret Card's book called Eileen. It is such a tyrannically sad account of one woman's life, trauma after trauma in that woman's life, that even today, more than a decade after I've taught that course, as I take the book in my hand, I still feel the emotions that ran through the lives of so many of the people mentioned in the book who inhabited the distant farms in New South Wales after the First World War. How apposite that the words of Mary Gilmore's poem should sit on the last page. No long grief. I'll read to the last paragraph. Nurse no long grief, lest the heart flower no more. Grief builds no barns, its plough rusts at the door. Memory is such a powerful and perplexing part of us. In many ways, a mystery. My daughter's 3 chooks with such tiny brains have an acute memory of person and place. I'm only a visitor every Saturday morning, but they remember me. And when I was looking after them to put them to their hutch in the evening, they knew where they had to go, person and place. That was their memory. The dog, of course, has a much more sophisticated management of his memory capacities. But we human beings can take out one photograph and laugh at the memory it evokes. Did I ever look like that? But one word, for all that, can send us racing from the room in rage, crying. One strange face in a crowded street, a stranger in a crowded street, can evoke a memory that brings intense pain to our chest. Memories loaded with feelings can capsize our functioning. We can't sleep, we can't settle, we can't remember the things we should remember. We remember things that we should not remember, that make us miserable, and that tip us into powerful paroxysms of pain. All that goes on. Someone says, every time I think of the mess I made, I feel sick. Another says, I will never forget that. I will go to my grave remembering what you did, and I'll take my anger and my discontent with me. How sad. And there is the power of memory that we live with every day. And how extraordinary that we take it for granted until it's gone. How extraordinary that we take it for granted and we don't stop to study it. Some would say, you're blaming other people for your unhappiness. Well, that might be the case. But that needs to be separated from the management of the memory. You have the hurtful event which occurred at a particular time. By memory, you can call that hurtful event into the present and into the future to go on hurting at time after time after time. The memory is not just a matter of recall, it is a matter of an emotional loading on the memory. The hat. Some of you know, if you've sat in my consulting room, I talk about the hat of the memory. The hat that you put on the memory becomes part of the memory. And the hat is full of emotion. If it's the black, ugly hat, black, orange, green hat, it's full of anger and bitterness and resentment. But it can be otherwise. So you have the event recalled, plus the memory that you now describe, the words you put to it, then the emotional loading on top of it, then your language that you put around it, the words, plus the past history, of course, and your values, your should or should nots, and then your awareness, your consciousness of the interested audiences, all play a part in the management of your memory. So memory operates in our own personal space, but also in our social networks. Something like, perhaps, a melanoma apparently does in our body networks. One little black spot, we're told, can spread into our various body systems until the body doesn't function anymore. And so this is what happens also with our memory. In the wide scope or wide sweep of memory, you notice that you have hurtful, negative, restless memories. You have rightful, caring memories. You have grateful remembering. You have a needful remembering. You have a very confused remembering. You have a memory we wish was not a memory. So it goes on. The untouchable memory, don't go there. The guarded, undisclosed memory. And the chorus memory, the memory we enjoy playing over and over again. You know, each of those memories have different ways of operating, and they're going to call for different ways of management. Generally, people don't do the detailed work on their memories, so they just respond in global ways, in generalities. Or they settle for being helpless in the face of the tyranny of a memory out of control. So what will I suggest? What to do with that memory? I'm going to put a few things in front of you, and I hope that they might be helpful. We can extract it from those networks in which it has become entangled. So imagine taking that memory out for a while and examining it. Secondly, we can remove the ugly energy hat so that we can now have the memory separated from the ugly energy, so that we can now intercept the damage that emotional energy is doing or will do. We can then change the ugly hat for a more attractive hat. Think of that. That is, we start moving away from the negative emotional loading by introducing positive emotions into our system. We can then refocus on life's different, better goals. Going in the wrong direction, now we turn around and go in a different direction, and we can close down all the toxic leakage that has been associated with the ugly hat. And we then can give memories a better language, different words, softening images. So there that side of the story is. But you want to say to me, well then what has religion got to say about this? Why are you talking about this in church? Has religion something more to offer? I believe it has something more to give us. And here I shall go into that. First of all, we need to distinguish the old faith from the new faith that I advocate. What do I mean? The old faith relied on God on his throne, and we were the sinners, always asking for forgiveness. The old faith held a view of God as the judge expecting remorse and ready to hand out punishment. The old religion, the old faith inculcated the inner power of guilt and fear, with implications that would go even after death. It's a frightening faith for me. Surely it's one we ought to revise. The old faith, the old religion left us with the emotions that are common to failure, common to fear, and common to our various fixations. The new faith presents us with the energy to be released from the old ways, to embrace the new. Released is one of the key words. Secondly, it says one of the givens of life is the resilience of life. We'll hear more about this through the year because I'm taking it as a major theme. The resilience of life flowing into each person. It's a gift, if only we knew it. The resilience opening up the possibilities of resilience in the self and resilience in the context of our relationships where the self has its existence. And next, the new faith offers us the insights of theology and therapy joined. Theology and therapy coming together, of which one vital insight leads to effective practice. Your faith has to work or it's no good. And so this is seen today I'm going to put to you, this is seen in my 6th F. Now, some of you will know that I talk about my Fs, 22, 23 of them, whatever. So to explain, several years ago, I was fascinated by a little book written by Frank Macnab called Angela's Ashes. I don't remember very much about the book these days, but I do remember it was a story of strenuous human anguish and pain in that family's household, hurt and sadness, there every day. And at times of great distress, the young kid of the story, Frank Macnab, would climb up the stairs in their house, and he would sit on the 7th step, from which he would draw comfort and consolation. In fact, he called that step the angel of the 7th step. The angel, I think the actual words are the angel of the 7th stair. Well, in my therapy house, if you like, I have several stairs, and they are all named with a word beginning with F. How you feel, how you function, what is your focus, and so on. But today I'm talking about my 6th F. And it's my 6th stair, if you like. And it is called filter. And it is one of the most powerful things, both psychologically, therapeutically, and theologically. Because the passages this morning from the Bible were talking very much about this, moving from that place to this, seeing that that can be done. The new faith recognizes how we can become fixed and fixated on our negatives, our conscious and unconscious entanglements. But the 6th F comes and invokes the possibility of consciously filtering out the negative emotions. Filtering out the negative emotions and filtering in the streams of good emotions, the good, the tender, and the beautiful. The 6th step, filter. Next, the new faith reminds us to find places of inspiration. You can go to any meetings you like, but they can be so flat, so boring, so dull. But would you find inspiration and restoration? And perhaps they can be found, hopefully they can be found through the rituals of a new faith, of people being together, searching for the meanings of life, celebrating the best moments of life. And thereby we forego the ugly hats and we celebrate life's colourful floppy hats. Of course, people come to me and they say, yes. But with this new faith that you advocate, what do you really believe? What do you believe? And it's true, we need to restate our beliefs. So here are a couple. I've outlined them more fully in my book on page 61 of Discover a New Faith. So I'll just give you a couple of those. In the New Faith second lecture, I stated there some beliefs relevant to the management of our memories. Here are a few. I believe in the energy of faith. Faith is an energy. Without it, our body falters, our mind gets cluttered to overload, and our spirit is impoverished and is without passion. I believe in the healing of wounds. I believe that Jesus of Nazareth pointed to a new awareness of spiritual health and growth. I believe that through all religions and beyond them, there is a deep yearning in the human spirit to be the carrier of the best courage, the best wisdom, the best inspiration for the well-being of each one and of all humanity. I believe that there are people of goodwill, people of intelligence and skill, who will persist in finding ways to translate their good, positive beliefs into a practical faith for the health and enhancement of themselves, of individuals, and the evolution and survival of our humanity. So there it is, and I put it to you. We need more people to be involved in that process. Not only here within St. Michael's, of course, but far beyond St. Michael's, we need more people to write, to speak, to say, to sing. We want to be part of a new faith that really does give us a new energy by which we can live more positively. Would you please stand? And here is the blessing for this day. Notice the blessing comes in words and imagery, hopefully conveying good emotions, good feelings. May the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.